Good morning. I'll introduce myself. I'm Collie Moody, the Learning Manager at Norwich Castle. Norwich Castle is a fairly typical museum. It's a county museum with very diverse collections. So we go from archaeology, we've got a splendid medieval castle, we've got art galleries, and we've got a temporary exhibition gallery. So very diverse collections. Up until last year, we didn't have a youth forum. It's been identified as a gap, and quite interestingly, there was quite a lot of pressure from various different places in the organisation about having a youth forum, but we were floundering about who was going to run it, how we were going to get the time to do it, and in fact, how we were going to make it all happen. So this is a bit of our story. Before we begin, though, I was going to say the particular thing that we were interested in as well was getting our young people to deliver events. It wasn't just consultation, it was actually getting them involved in delivering at the chalk face.
My name's Caroline Wright, and I'm the Youth Forum Coordinator at Norwich Castle. Just a little bit of background to our group. We have 11 active members, and we're recruiting on an annual basis. We only became established at the end of December 2010, so we're very young, and we haven't yet run our first event, which will be next Saturday. So what you're going to hear about is something that is going to happen in the future. We communicate through regular meetings, and we also have a Ning site, which you'll see a little bit of later, which is a place where we can post videos, photographs, comments, converse, documents, and it's a wonderful repository for all the information relating to the Youth Forum. As I've said, our first event will be next Saturday, and it's linked to the temporary exhibition that's coming to Norwich Castle entitled Restless Times. Our forthcoming events are going to be a family focus event, again linked to Restless Times, and we're looking forward to developing an event based around an exhibition that's coming up of the work of Duprat, a French artist, which will happen in May. So I'm going to hand you over to two of the Youth Forum members who are going to talk about what's going to happen next Saturday, Holly-Ann Thorne and Catherine Andrews. Holly-Ann.
Hello, I'm Holly-Ann. To coincide with the Restless Times exhibition, which is held in one of the temporary exhibition spaces at the castle beginning on Saturday the 19th of February, the Youth Forum was particularly interested in creating a bridge between the World War II's issues explored in the exhibition and the current recession. An item which held particular importance during the Depression was the potato, and more currently, with food prices rocketing, this simple vegetable is holding more importance in everyday life. Expense has been whittled down to convenience and cutting corners to make the humble pound stretch further. Reflecting this simplicity in mass, the potato becomes less of an edible item but a symbol of increasing poverty with a hint of hope in something previously taken for granted. By encrusting the dungeon floors with mounds of potatoes and their sacks, the audience is forced to walk among them. With a gold leaf potato in a pristine glass box thrust at the end of the piles, the question of value is very apparent with the glistening reflections and plush velvet cushion the potato sits on. This relates strongly to the second parallel within this piece, the propaganda around the concentration camps. The damp grisly history which runs through the walls of the dungeons, the part of the medieval castle once used as a prison, encourages the comparison of rotting corpses with the tessellated potatoes. The body reference is reminiscent of the underground drawings of Henry Moore featured in the exhibition. The delicate and dark markings intertwined with creating a bed of despair and woe. Carrying on to the following room, the audience is faced with a complex film of piled bodies, along with a sound piece describing the camp as an idyllic holiday destination. The eerie surroundings become more uncomfortable with silence, the trickery of the mind engulfed by the tension between what is reality and how much we take comfort in what is hidden or lies. The rows of potatoes and sacks become a metaphor for the limpness of the human body, the comfort of the everyday and the horror of reality. Over to Catherine.
So Holly-Ann's explained to you a little bit about our ideas and where our thinking came from and what we're trying to say with this piece. So now I'm going to just try and kind of talk you through it and hopefully give you some idea of what the visitors to our piece will experience. So we visiting the dungeons in the castle is usually done by a guided tour, so we had to kind of fit this into our installation. So what we're going to do is we're going to collect the groups, the visitors to our installation, upstairs at the reception desk of the castle, and then lead them down into the dungeons and do it as a kind of tour. But because we want people to respond in their own way to the installation and think about what it means for them without the influence of our ideas, we're just going to start with a brief welcome and a kind of safety talk, which you have to do. We're not really going to tell them anything about the installation, and then we'll just lead them down into the dungeons. We also felt that keeping that noise and keeping it quiet down there to allow people to experience the installation was important. So we're just going to instruct the group to follow the lead of the guides to try and keep talking to a minimum. So we're going to just lead people straight through. The first couple of rooms down in the dungeons are just displays about the history of the dungeons. So we lead them straight through there into the first room of the installation, which will be a pathway through, on one side sacks of potatoes and on the other side piles of potatoes. And then at the end of the pathway will be the golden potato on a plinth, which is a real potato that we've covered in gold leaf. Once they're inside the room, Anastasia, another member of our group, is going to tell them a story about her great-grandmother who swapped her wedding ring for a sack of potatoes during the siege of Leningrad in the Second World War. And then once this story has been told, the group will be led through into the second room, where they will be shown a time-lapse video of potatoes rotting, overlaid with photographs from the Second World War, mainly from the concentration camps, and a propaganda soundtrack based on what the impression of the camps that the Nazis wanted to give out. So now I think we're going to show a clip of the video.
And it's perhaps important at this point just to say that our event is for over 12-year-olds only, because of the nature of the content in the film.
For leisure also. At the end of their day, or the mill or food factory, the workers can enjoy the many forms of pastime that the camp has to offer. Organized sport is very popular. Those that don't play certainly enjoy watching. At the end of the working day, the centrally located cafe is the ideal place for friends and families to join together for a hearty and nutritious meal. Children in particular enjoy the pastries and cakes more often. In the evenings, the occasional music concerts, either by visiting orchestras or indeed by talented musicians from within the camp itself, are always well attended. Other recreations include reading in the library, pottery, cookery, art, and horticulture, for adult and child alike. Almost any activity one can wish for is available within the camp.
This screen just shows you an example of the Ning site that we use to communicate when we're not actually meeting. And you can see that we've seen the video screen from that site online.
So that isn't the finished version of our video. We're still in the process of editing it, and we're photographing the time-lapse rotting of potatoes. We're still in the process of photographing them rotting, so the final version will have that that video laid over the top of what you've just seen. So once the visitors have been shown this film, we felt it was important to just leave a minute or two of silence. The atmosphere in the dungeon is quite it has quite a strong atmosphere. So we felt it was important to kind of let the silence settle and kind of enhance the experience and let people kind of think about what they'd seen. And then once we've done that, we will lead the group back out of the dungeons. As they leave, they will be handed a leaflet explaining a bit more about where we were coming from and where our ideas behind the piece, which we have some examples of if anybody would like to have a look. And then just outside the dungeons, there'll be an opportunity for them to write down their response. We also wanted to ask the question, what a potato was worth to them, and get people to think about the idea in the story of swapping a wedding ring, something that's very valuable, for potatoes. And we wanted to kind of get people to think about that and what they would value, whether they would swap something of that value for food. And then so they will have people will have an opportunity to write down their response and leave it in a box for our feedback, and that's something that we will possibly use to influence our next event. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.